This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Palette, and it's Halloween month. Bearded, gay orcs. Today we're taking a look at another SCP story, SCP-457, codenamed Burning Man. Let's get right into this one. Item number SCP-457. Object class Euclid / potential Keter. Potential Keter. I've never heard that before. Okay. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-457 is to be kept in a 5 meter by 5 meter chamber with no less than 22.9 centimeters, 9 inches, of cumulative fireproofing via various materials, asbestos, cement, perlite boards, upon all surfaces, and a blast-proof observation window with emergency blast shielding installed. Holy shit, SCP-457 is literally to be contained inside of a fireproof house, guys. Holy shit. I'm guessing that the person that constructed this was Jerison. That's amazing. The opening to the chamber must consist of at least 2 temperature-controlled and airtight chambers that may be sealed in case of emergency. SCP-457's chamber should be kept at high humidity with a drainage system installed into the floor, as well as misting sprinkler system, misting sprinkler system installed and running constantly, and emergency hoses capable of at least 1.5 MPa, or 30 psi, of water pressure. SCP-457 is allowed a small structure upon the wall of its chamber that remains water-free but allows for minimal protection and preservation of form. So this concession has been made for SCP-457, presumably at its request, at its own agency, so it has some form of agency to request this thing, because it says, is allowed that structure. That almost presumes, not necessarily, but almost presumes that it has some sentience to ask for that. But let's find out for sure. All personnel entering SCP-457's chamber should be wearing at least Class A temperature-controlled, flame-retardant, sealed suits and enter in groups of 3 with 2 members equipped with high-grade blast shields and emergency fire extinguishers. All personnel should only enter SCP-457's chamber in order to supply SCP-457 with the daily allotment of fuel materials or to examine and repair any damage to the chamber or sprinkler systems. To describe the image that goes along with this story, it's a image of a man constructed out of fire and then a weird kind of shape next to it, and it's labeled SCP-457, having split into 2 bodies, observes a camera during testing. Okay, so this is being observed by surveillance cameras, presumably inside a testing chamber, maybe separate from the actual chamber that we see, that the SCP-457 is actually being contained in. But the image itself is kind of vague as to whether that's another body being formed, and that's one aspect that I think is really interesting, is that the SCP Foundation allows users to recontextualize these images, and so when you say that, it becomes plausible that this is a body splitting into 2 bodies, because you're being expressly told that, and you can kind of stretch the truth to make that be the case, and you can kind of make out a body there, parts of it, kind of like a chest area and abdomen. Should SCP-457 engage personnel in a hostile manner, it is to be controlled via emergency extinguishers and hoses until it retreats back to its safety chamber. In the event that SCP-457 breaks containment, emergency sprinkler systems will be triggered and personnel will be supplied with extinguishers and blast shielding. So far, this story is very much so procedural. It's very much so by the books of what you would expect from SCP Foundation, and nothing too out of the ordinary, really. I'm hoping that when we actually get into some of the addendums that I spot below, that we get an origin story for this SCP, because right now this is very dry. Literally, no pun intended. Literally no pun intended. Although now I intend the pun. I take that back. I am now intending that pun, even though I previously did not intend it. Description. For all points and purposes, SCP-457 appears to be a sentient being composed of flame. SCP-457's actual composition is unknown and has proven to be invisible and undetectable by any known means, but its shape, shaped out of flames it produces, often assuming a human-like form if given sufficient fuel to assume that size. SCP-457's most rudimentary form appears to be that of a single flame, comparable in size to that of a matchstick. In this form, SCP-457 possesses only the simplest of directives and shows no signs of being unusual compared to any other flame beyond a penchant for sudden flickering to burn human hands. The ability to jump to more flammable materials or other flames, which it then assimilates into its total form. So this thing is like SCP-457 is like the John Carpenter's The Thing, but fire. As SCP-457 grows larger, it is able to assume more complex shapes, and its intelligence grows with size and fuel sources. That is interesting. So you're literally putting fuel on the fire. You're giving this thing intelligence. That is a disturbing and intriguing concept. I like that. SCP-457's method of intelligence is unknown, but upon reaching an approximate human size, SCP-457 almost always assumes a human-like form surrounded by and composed of flames. SCP-457 has been observed to communicate through writing letters out of its own flames, charring them onto the wall or other surfaces, and more rarely through speech created via high-pressure, superheated air and cracking and popping of flames. Once SCP-457 reaches an unknown threshold of size and fuel source, SCP-457 splits into two beings, and so on and so forth. Okay. However, multiple beings of SCP-457 are aggressive towards each other and will attempt to consume or extinguish their doubles, especially if there is a limited amount of fuel at hand. Okay, so I like that this self-destructive nature that we're seeing in SCP-457 is kind of taking it away from that Mary Sue Keter category and showing that it does have some weaknesses and some destructive properties. We're also seeing that since it is, relative to some other SCPs, since it's so easily contained for a Euclid/Keter, it kind of loses some of its thread and gains a level of intrigue, I would say. And that's something that I think a lot of people, from what I've seen in comments, a lot of people are very concerned with Keters having that Mary Sue status, and I think this has avoided that so far. But let's see where this goes. SCP-457's behavior is largely predictable, as its goals are simply to acquire larger sources of fuel and to spread. The danger of SCP-457 comes from its ability to increase intelligence with size and apparent ability to learn and mimic behaviors. This has led to its purposefully damaging and sabotaging sprinkler systems and, in rare circumstances, set up relatively complex traps. Ooh, I like that. So this thing gains genius-like intelligence through getting bigger, and presumably, if left to its own devices, would become a genius of of alien proportions where a human mind couldn't even comprehend how intelligent that is. So it has to be sequestered and kept under lock and key and under a sprinkler system and made sure that it stays only at a certain size. And along with that, again, I say that this is like the Thing, but for fire. The Thing is talking about human life that gets, trapped up in John Carpenter's The Thing. This is obviously mimicking human life, not just in speech patterns and its behavior and intelligence and everything, but in terms of its desire to grow, acquire fuel sources and grow in size. I mean, that is kind of what most life is like. It wants, organic life is like. It wants to acquire fuel sources to continue and spread its influence, It has also attempted to trick or reason with personnel to be released or to have access to more fuel. Due to SCP-457's unique composition, variable intelligence, and uncooperative nature, its psychology may not be accurately determined in accordance with any human analogy. Again, that goes back to what I was saying. It can be way dumber than any human and way more intelligent than any human. But the degree to which it can be more intelligent to a human is vastly bigger than how stupid it can get in comparison to us. And that's the problem with these SCPs, is that they're a ticking time bomb no matter how you contain them. SCP-457 was recovered in Redacted in the summer of 2007 after multiple wildfires were attributed to it. It is unknown where or how SCP-457 initially formed. Investigation into the potential of SCP-457 being responsible for other major fires is underway. Oh my god. Is SCP-457 Swimming Coyote? Is SCP-457 the Great Spirit of Entropy, spreading fire across Chillicothe? No. Canonically, no. Just a joke. So we're getting into an addendum, but before we do so, there is an attached picture, and it's labeled SCP-457 attacking a forest prior to capture. Note increased size. Photo taken just before splitting threshold met. And it is a picture of a fire on a mountain. It's unclear what's going on in the background because of the fire and the flames. And it's enveloping a camper, like a travel camper. Addendum. An interview between Dr. Redacted and SCP-457. Dr. Redacted. Can you speak currently? SCP-457. Yes. Dr. Redacted. Good. Would you mind answering some questions? SCP-457 gives no reply. Dr. Redacted. I'll take that as a no. How do you feel about being confined? SCP-457. A crackling sound. Disliked. No fuel. No air. Dr. Redacted. We have provided you with adequate air and fuel to survive. SCP-457. Cannot burn. No fuel. Dr. Redacted. Are you saying you cannot grow? SCP-457. Grow. Need. Must grow. 47 moves about containment area as if searching. SCP-457 says, Becky, let me smash. Let me smash Becky. Give me branch. Give me fuel. SCP Redacted. Dr. Redacted, how do you feel? SCP-457. Hungry. Dr. Redacted. How do you feel do you feel anything besides hunger? SCP-457. No answer. SCP-457 approaches blast shielding, separating it from Dr. Redacted. Dr. Redacted. How do you feel about humans? SCP-457. They burn. SCP-457 moves closer to the blast shielding, appearing to examine the window and Dr. Redacted. Dr. Redacted. How do you feel about fuel? SCP-457. It burns. That implies that it hurts. It burns. 457 places a hand upon the blast shielding to no effect. Dr. Redacted, please move away from the window, or we will be forced to reduce your size considerably. SCP-457, no reply or signs of understanding. Does not move. Dr. Redacted, how do you feel about water? SCP-457 emits a high-pitched scream of superheated air and presses body against blast shielding. Dr. Redacted. Please move away from the window, or we will be forced to turn the sprinklers back on. SCP-457 backs away from the window, still screaming, hissing, and snapping. Dr. Redacted, do you understand that? Stay away from the window, or you will be doused. SCP-457 quiets and remains still for several seconds before approaching the window again, stopping several feet away. Dr. Redacted, do you understand? SCP-457, want fuel, want air, want burn, want to burn, want to burn, want to burn. Repeating itself, growing louder and in parentheses, repeating itself, growing louder and beginning to move about containment area rapidly, apparently searching walls and ceilings for a way out. So I certainly like how SCP-457 is kind of a commentary on humanity's id, about this desire for want, this very animalistic lizard brain kind of mindset, and the idea that someone who has an insatiable id and an unparalleled amount of intelligence when left to their own devices, that's kind of a terrifying thing, especially for humanity. I like that. And through this examination, we're getting an exploration of that. I would really prefer these kind of transcribed things to be through audio. I know that it's really unfeasible to put them into video, but an audio format of this I think would be really interesting. Might be interested in talking with David about doing a Midnight Marinera for this, because it's a really interesting concept and lends itself very well to audio. Dr. Redacted, there was not a way out. If you would please, what is it doing? Is it looking for a way out? At this point in the interview, SCP-457 manages to severely damage much of the sprinkler system and destroy a portion of the fuel injector that had been sustaining its intelligent form, giving it free access to several gallons of gasoline. The interview transcribed was via security footage from before the blast. SCP-457's temporary breach of containment came from an explosion of sealant used to attach the blast shielding to the rest of the chamber. How SCP-457 managed to learn of and exploit this weakness is unknown, and it has since been moved to a higher security chamber. Okay, so there's kind of a cat and mouse thing going on here. Is that the right term? There is a hand that is not being shown. And I'd be willing to bet that what SCP-457 is doing here, by expressing itself in these rudimentary ways, is kind of giving itself a distraction to figure out a way out of the scenario to give itself all of that fuel. It is kind of compliant with the demands, but also at the same time not. And it's kind of reminiscent of a person trying to play chicken with police and see what they can get away with, taunting a police officer, you know? It's kind of funny to see SCP-457 towing that line when Dr. Redacted in the situation seemingly has all the power. That's not necessarily the case, and I like that. Addendum 2. Due to excessive research requirements in keeping SCP-457 contained, locating a permanent renewable fuel source is currently a high priority. Proposals so far include, but are not limited to, use of starch dust obtained through SCP-1689's potatoes. Amazing. I love SCP-1689, the whole potato adventure. If you haven't seen that episode of Undercooked Analysis, I would highly recommend it. Links in the description. Use of SCP-124 to rapidly produce sources of biofuel. Approval of one or more of these proposals pending review. So that was a neat little story. Definitely not my favorite, but I kind of had low expectations for this one. I thought that it would be a kind of Mary Sue SCP story, but I was pleasantly surprised with it. So let me know what you think about it. I definitely think that commentary on humanity was interesting, and I don't think that I'm alone in seeing that in this story. Now, if you enjoyed that, please consider helping out the community and supporting my channel. You can support the community by conversing in the comments below, going to toospooky.com for original horror stories, and trying your hand at short horror yourself. You can support me by liking this video, following me on Twitter and Tumblr, links in the description, and checking out my art page, which is also down below. Thank you so much for your time, and now on to our sponsor at this non-moment in time, which is Peeps. Peeps! Put them into fire, and they probably don't taste as good as regular marshmallows. I don't know, man. Peeps are kind of gross, but you have one and they're kind of okay. Oh my god, I'm so shit at this.